support characters. Fun, like playing a wizard that has like all kinds of support spells is very fun to me. So it's like it's so fun. Like this is my favorite topic. I could literally talk with you guys about this for hours.
Yeah,
so
no, I think you're
I've
right
done all
on.
of it.
Yeah, I think you're right on as far as when kind of going back to what I was saying. And Daniel, I don't know if I don't want to cut you off, Daniel. I don't know if you had any input on that.
I do. I actually have to interrupt you guys for 1 second. If you guys are just joining us, it's because I didn't hit the go live button.
So all right then.
I got a message just now that everybody was waiting for us to join. 4 people were waiting, and yes, I did not hit the go live button. So expect to see the full recording tomorrow at some point.
Hit the rewind.
But just to catch you up, we're discussing character creation. We're playing Gauntlet Slayer Edition. It's available on Steam, and character creations in D&D and what it means to you to create a character, both in the spirit of the characters versus the mechanics of the character. And we're also waiting on Gregory to open this damn door that last 10 minutes.
Because to converse.
So yeah, for those of you joining, Gregory was just making a great point about filling a role, creating a character to fill a role in the adventuring party that you're playing in. And along those lines, I kind of agree with you, Gregory, in that I think I'm the same way. And I think that's a cool thing about 5th edition is they have made it to where pretty much every role is fun to play. Because I think a lot of people, like for a healer, a lot of people, at least in my experience, that's generally the role that's overlooked, that, you don't have people just jumping at playing. But there's some really cool healer builds, right? That can do some really cool things and keep everybody up. As I'm playing currently in a game online, a live streamed game that I'm playing the tank. Basically, nice. you made a comment earlier about building a character to be a hero, and that's his whole concept is he's learning to be a hero. Nice. In our last adventure, I went down 3 times in one fight, and you know what? My players kept getting me back up, which they should, right? I'm a tank.
Nice.
But that being said, is I think, and this is kind of going off on another tangent, which is what we do on this stream.
Yes,
that's kind of the 3 of us. Well, I don't know, Daniel. Actually, you might not. You might disagree with me on this because I know you like to tell people that you're kind of you're not really, you haven't been playing that long. So certainly with regard to Gregory and I. So this might be actually a great conversation in that I think, Gregory, I don't want to speak for you, but I think you might agree that being an experienced player, a long-time player.
Let me get the food.
Sorry.
It's okay.
Oh, you did need that. Sorry.
It's all good. It's all good, dude.
That's what happens when you start talking and you're trying to play the game.
That's why I stopped, because I couldn't do both.
I'll stay back.
No, but share your thought, because I'll probably agree with you for
sure. That being said, as an experienced player, you sometimes get stuck. And stuck is a bad word to use because it's what you make of it, right? But you get in the position where you're feeling that needed, right? Okay, if we don't have a healer, we're all going to die. So you fill that role because you're experienced and you know how to make it work. Where you kind of made the comment earlier that some people may not have seen was that everybody wants to be a rogue or everybody wants to be a paladin.
Yeah.
Or you mentioned that a lot of people like to be magic users. That's interesting because I know a lot of people don't like to be wizards. Yes.
Well, I use that broadly.
Yeah,
sorcerers,
for sure.
Warlocks, any caster.
Yeah, for sure.
I guess caster is this typical. Don't get it.
Caster is the
typical modern term for anyone that can throw magic around.
But I agree with that. So to that point of so maybe Daniel, maybe the question to you is when you're looking at creating the character, what do you look at? What's your main focus?
Okay, so I've really only played long term 2 different characters because I almost always am the DM. In both times, the characters are created based on the personalities, not the. I'm not saying I'm creating a rogue or a ranger. I'm saying I'm creating Mowgli, who was a goblin turned off by himself in the woods, and so he became a ranger because a goblin ranger, it makes sense to me. And then I built his character off of that. The same thing with my other character, Mara, which is created, and she actually was created for a one shot, where I wanted to learn more about my very important NPC for my regular game. So I knew the character was a rogue. I knew she was half drow and kind of snarky, but that's all I really knew about her. And I really enjoy playing her now because I know her. I know her intimately. So like when she shows up in my regular game I'm DMing, I'll know exactly how to work her without having to worry about scripting or what her motivations are or anything. I know her motivations, but all the time it's character first, it's personality first, and then build the character around it. Same thing with starting equipment, by the way, is I don't min-max starting equipment. I don't min-max, like she's like Mira is a rogue. She's a cat burglar. I'm going to take thief. I'm going to take the cat burglar. I'm going to take equipment that a thief would have in order to break into places, whether it is good or bad or better for my games, mechanically. This is what she has on her, and I'm happy with that.
Yeah. But that's the one thing that a lot of people get into about, like, you call it min-maxing, which I basically agree with. That's, a reasonable way to say it. Don't leave all my gold behind. Or I'll get it. It's like a lot of people are like, they're so into the mechanics of the game. It's like they have to have the best weapon. They have, and whatever they consider the best weapon. Oh, the best weapon is the weapon that does the most damage. Well, is it? Or is it the weapon that makes sense for, like you just said, the personality? Like that's how I prefer to look at the game, is from that perspective, for sure.
Yeah, but Dan, you just brought up something I have like asterisked and underlined on my list that I've learned from, I know, like you said, in our conversations, you talk a lot about, you're the least experienced. I've learned that from you, the whole concept of taking an NPC in your game as a DM and playing that as a character in other games. I think that's brilliant. Taking that and really learning. I would even say, I know Mira, that you mentioned earlier, is one of your favorite characters and you just love the concept of her. But I would even take it further that, how awesome would it be to take as a DM, especially if you're homebrewing this, your big bad in-game, big bad enemy guy, whatever you want to say BBEG means, and playing that out and learning him and knowing what is his motivations, what has he experienced, what has he gone through. How much more does that increase your ability to role play that character when your players encounter it? I think that a brilliant thing that I learned from you, that I think a lot of DMs could learn from, is taking that chance to learn those characters.
Well, start playing. You can do a one shot and cost you $5. You could play through any character concept that you have, and I guarantee you that you can walk away from that one session knowing your character well enough to ad lib anything you needed for your game that you're in. I could pull Mira. She's an important part of the campaign that I run with my family. I could pull her at any point in time to accomplish any task I'm trying to do, and ad lib her out because I just know how she would react to just about anything, including people stealing their truffles. It's a thing. It's a whole thing. You have no idea.
But along those lines, so something else I was thinking about when we were talking about that is, and maybe this is a question for you, Gregory, is have you ever taken one of your characters that you've played for maybe a long-term character and made it the big bad end game, the big boss at the end, and the example I would use, and my players, if you're watching this, stop watching now, because I think I mentioned this on our last video. my longest played character is a 20th level light cleric who's chaotic. It's not chaotic. Is neutral evil or lawful evil. Lawful evil. Back when that was allowed. We won't get into evil characters not being allowed anymore. But
what is that about?
Yeah, that's a Adventurers League thing. But that being said, that's without going down that road. I've thought about, wow, he would make a really cool big bad end game. So have you guys ever thought about that? Taking one of your own characters and making them the actual. This is the final battle, final fight.
Right. I have not, because I almost always play good characters. I've liked the idea of playing evil characters, especially lawful evil, because I feel like you could be a lawful evil character and have like very clear ideas about what that means and how to, like you still have sort of a there's still a line you won't cross versus, let's say, like chaotic evil or whatever.
Yeah,
and
sure.
I even have issues with like a lot of players playing chaotic neutral characters. And the funny thing is, like, the reality is in 5th edition and in modern tables, the alignment really doesn't play into the game anymore like it used to.
Yeah,
I'm okay with
like
that.
When I was playing as a kid, it was a big deal, like especially for a paladin, but for pretty much for everybody. But definitely for a paladin, like if you sort of stepped out of line, it had big consequences, right? You basically lost everything. So, it's interesting how alignment has kind of gone by the wayside.
It really has. So not to focus this on my character, but to your point, I think alignment ends up being more of a role playing aspect to it.
100%.
And the reason I say that is I just think this is a funny story, so I'll share it. Is my cleric had intentions. He was basically, we were doing Tomb of Annihilation. My whole concept was he was lawful evil, and his whole point, without doing any spoilers, was to figure out what the soulmonger was and weaponize it.
Interesting.
So his thought was everyone else is just a meat shield for him. None of the players. I literally went through the whole campaign only healing people once, and that's just because me and another character had become best friends, so I healed him once.
Wow.
But the funny, and this is just a funny anecdote, or not anecdote, but a funny story, is I cast Spiritual Guardians, and not really understanding the spell. And for anybody out there who knows how that spell works, read the description, because it basically tells you what ends up surrounding you when you cast the spell if you're evil. And my DM asked me, so what surrounds you? And I had to tell everybody, oh yeah, these little fiends start surrounding me. And everybody looked at me and they said, fiends are surrounding you? So anyway, that's my funny story on that. And again, I'll reiterate this on probably every stream. It gets back to the fun of the shared experience, because me and my friends still talk about that today, and that was like 5 years ago.
Sure.
Because we all lived that experience, and we all remember that experience.
Yeah.
Like it was yesterday. And I know I did a video on shared experience. So if you guys want to see that video, go check out our videos. Because it's a huge part of role playing, or third part tabletop role playing, is that shared experience that we all share.
Totally. Well, yeah, that's what it should be. It's your group storytelling, basically.
Yeah.
Well, and that. Go ahead, Daniel.
I was just going to say, you say share experience, but it's really about the people at the table, and I think somebody needs to come up with some sort of spectrum that you can exist on the TTRPG scale of power gamer to RPG completely, or role playing, in order to allow people to know if they're compatible. Because I feel like, while I like playing with the guy named Mike, like me and him just are not. We don't see the game the same way. We just don't. Like we are totally different. We're on totally different ends of the spectrum on that, and like it just feels like you're going to clash over and over again about it.
Right.
Well,
that comes back. That could also have a lot to do with the game. Like some people are going to be really keen on a D&D game versus, let's say, Savage Worlds or Genesis or like all the other ones. And obviously we're here to mostly talk about Dungeons and Dragons, but I have found like there are, to that point, there are people who are super fun playing one system that I've experienced this, where it's like they're great in this system over here, but as soon as we shift to this system, either they're boring, they don't enjoy it, they sort of game it too much, like a min-max or a power game or whatever. So it's very interesting from system to system how that happens, at least in my experience. And
Austin Walker in the comments said that he made an alignment cube. I asked him if it was a cube. He said, yes, a cube, lines and grids was too ineffective.
Yeah. Well, that's fair.
I lost that time. Yeah. So alignment, I never give any thought to alignment. Now I understand that certain things like Paladin matters, but to me, declaring an alignment is weird and kind of counterintuitive to the game. Like my character is just going to react to the situation the way I think she would. And I don't really know my characters until I've played with them for a little while. So I feel like at level 1, 2, and 3 is like me discovering who they really are and how they react and all that. So I feel like they're still being rolled up until like level 3, like they're still being created. But to declare an alignment at level 1 is weird to me because it's just me telling everybody else how to judge my gameplay, and I'm not going to do that.
Yeah, that's a great point, Daniel. Because I to be honest, I don't know the last time that character was probably the last time I actually put any thought into alignment when I created it. Because as I'm thinking through, I don't think my last few. I know their motivations. I know, what for that potion. I know their motivations. I know what drives them. So that all leads to alignment, I guess. But I've never actually said, okay, so because of this, they're going to be chaotic good. Maybe they play that way because that's just how they are. Maybe I don't know. Maybe my thought process is going to be no. They're going to be Leroy Jenkins. That's kind of what my character right now is in that game I was talking about. But it's less. Let's not think about it. It's more. Hey, it's time to be a hero. Let's go in. We don't need to think about this. There's something bad in there.
Yeah.
But does that fall under alignment? I don't know. It probably means he's chaotic good. I think he's lawful good. Probably chaotic good.
Maybe somebody else wants to label my gameplay. They can do that. I don't care. I'm not going to declare it. Like
that's a great point.
Like it's one of those things. Like in one of my games that I'm playing currently, it'll be somebody else's turn, and they stop. They freeze. Like, oh, what should I do? And I swear to God, every single time I have a turn, I'm never thinking what is the most optimum way to do this combat. I'm thinking, okay, Mira just saw, this rock over here fall on, your comrade. And, she sees somebody over there just fell down and somebody over there just got killed. How does Mira react to this? I'm never trying to be strategic in combat. And maybe that makes me a terrible person to play with because I'm willing to tank a turn if it feels right to the moment based on her observations of what she sees.
That means to you, the story is more important than all the other stuff.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And also, it's also not metagaming, and I think that's a lot of it too.
Right. Oh, that's such a good point, Daniel. Yeah, because and I would never do this as a DM, but I mean, I have seen DMs who have a timer, who say it's your turn. you have 30 seconds to respond, and maybe I'm just arbitrarily picking a time limit, but I can see, I would never do that as a DM because I understand my players. Situations change, right? And you may not be, whatever you were planned might have changed because somebody's not where they said they were or you thought they were going to be. But I also get to your point, Dan, of not overthinking it. Just react. What would you do? It's 6 seconds. What would your character have done in this situation?
That is a thing so often overlooked, is that your turn is 6 seconds long. That's how long you have to decide. And I know that our characters are superhuman. They are super heroes to a lot of sense. So they are better than us.
And they can just stand in spikes, just like Gregory's doing.
God. Oh, man, because my hand slipped off the keys. That's so funny. I'm like, why is this moving so goofy? Yeah. WSASD, dude. Hello. Goodness gracious. That was frustrating.
But no, when you have 6 seconds, I mean, you should really just step back and say, okay, what did my character just see?
Yeah.
What does my character think would be a smart move? And just do that move without worrying so much that it's not the perfect move. Like, just react. Damn it. One of my favorite things above all in this game is stealing from you two.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I know. I've seen.
But yeah, so I mean that's a concept that is weird for me, is watching other people like, I don't know what to do. I don't know which spell should I could like, which one feels right,
Right. Well, no, I mean, and that's a great something I didn't prepare myself to talk about, but I think we need to talk about is dealing with various experience players, because oh man, this could probably gonna step on some toes, so I'm sorry anybody out there, I'm stepping on your toes. It is the frustration of, and this is another example of something that's become a meme. Yeah, somebody needs some food. Daniel, is that you or?
Damn
yeah,
it.
I do. All right. I'm coming.
Sorry.
Hold on. Hey, this for you guys.
It is okay. I'm just gonna flat out say it. Know your character.
Well, yeah, for sure.
It's to me, it's kind of a disservice to the other players. And I know the three of us probably spend every day thinking about Dungeons and Dragons, right? We spend some part of our day just, okay, what's going to happen, coming up. And I know there's people that, although I don't understand how they think, but D&D isn't all they think about, but that's all I think about. But I get it. I have to accept that there's people with deficiencies who don't just think about D&D all the time. I say that jokingly, kind of.
It's our
that
jobs,
being
too.
said,
Kind of.
I spend a lot of my time thinking about characters and what I'm going to be doing. I would appreciate if people would just spend 15 minutes before the game starts thinking about, am I dead? How did I die?
Yeah.
All right.
I don't know.
Killed you.
Oh, that's good. I'm talking, so that's all right.
It's just a game. But that's the thing. It's just a game. It's just a
Snitches
game.
get stitches.
We're playing
Gregory.
D&D. It's just a game. But the thing is, like, take it seriously too, right? Get the food, dude. That's why I didn't get it.
Oh, no, I'm okay. I'm okay right now. Yeah, I guess they should probably.
It's just a game, right? But it's a game that a lot of us take very seriously and play it intently and, put a lot of energy and effort into it. To what you're saying, Daniel, or Dan, is like, I agree with you 100%. Like, why did you not know what to do? And I get it in the moment. It's like, oh, I've got all these options. So I'm not sure what's the most optimal thing, which Daniel is basically getting to, is like, it doesn't matter what's the most optimal. Do what makes the most sense to you in the moment. Right. I hear that for sure.
But along those lines is you have to at least, and I appreciate all my players, and I appreciate anybody who wants to play, right? Because usually us as the DMs, we're the ones looking for players because we really want to play. It's yeah. Why? Oh, there we go. It's letting me revive now. I don't need food.
Yeah, we're all good.
I do not subscribe to the idea that the DM needs to be subservient to the players. Like I do think there's a certain level of respect that should be given to player DMs. That DMs are always worried about, what do my players think? Are they having fun? Are they having a good time? But really, our players should be way more concerned with what our DMs think, because everything gets put on the DM, and it's almost never the DM's fault. It's almost always the player's fault.
Don't go that way. I have a key.
Like, I mean, I'm not talking about my players, by the way. So please, nobody think that. But truth be told,
me either. I'm not talking about any of my players.
Between 3 and 5 players at a table, or people at a table, and you're blaming everything in a bad session on the DM.
No, definitely not. Yeah, that's not realistic. Well, and the other thing too is that, like, again, it comes back to number one, the DM is a player as well.
Yes.
You got to remember that. Like, you're at the table with the entire group. You're a player as well. The only difference between a DM and a player who's playing a player character is the DM is adjudicating the rules.
Right.
That's it.
I saw was it a movie or something? He says, "I play the orchestra." You remember? I don't know what movie that's off of. He was asking a director, an orchestra director. It's like, what instrument do you play? And he's like, I play the orchestra. I forget what movie that's from.
That's hysterical. I get it, but
you're playing the whole world, and there's nothing wrong with the DM having fun playing the whole world and having fun prepping.
For sure.
But when you have players that constantly are showing up late, they're not paying attention. I know it's just a game, and I know real world is going to get in the way.
Yeah.
You're still disrespecting your DM's time because they spend a lot more time than you ever will on your game. And I know this because I usually almost always am a DM, but now I'm going to start playing game, and it's just so nice. They get to show up 10 minutes beforehand and shoot the shit with the DM while he's finishing his prep. Totally. And I never got to do that before, and it's just a beautiful thing. And it's just, I just really think players should be more careful about respecting their DMs. And again, not my players. My players are wonderful.
Well,
also,
no,
don't think
and I would agree with that too. My players are super. But again, we're talking about players, and I think Gregory, you'd probably agree that it's you, because you've mentioned before, you have players that you've been playing with longer than Daniel or I either have been playing combined. Have been playing with our players.
Sure.
But I've got players that I've been playing with for 6 years. Since Stranger Things started, basically, as I mentioned earlier. And I, as a DM, know, I don't want to say limitations, because that makes it sound like they're limited in some kind. I don't mean that. But I know the amount of effort or the amount of time. Let me say that. Because it's not, if they had more time, maybe they'd put more effort into it. So I don't think any of my players, there you go. Greediest hero. I got it.
Mm-hmm.
Explosives exit. Hey, that's cool.
Austin saying DM is only 1/3 of the story, so should only do 1/3 of the work. Interesting.
Oh, that's a great point.
Yeah. You know, character goals, that's an interesting thing. I don't think a lot of players that have not been playing for some time. Can we pause for a second? I just want to talk. Like, I just rather hang out with you guys. The game is a little bit of a distraction. Like, so let's wind back to character creation, right? So one thing it really differentiates things for me when I'm making a character is this character for a campaign that I think and hope and expect to go for a long term, or is it we readied up anyway?
That's right. I'm gonna back out.
Or is it a one-time deal where, like, I'm just gonna play this one game that, you know, doesn't matter, I could just have fun. Like, that to me is really important. And here's a good thing. I love what Austin said. I don't think very many players create characters with very clear goals. It's not critical. It's certainly not important, and you can play and have fun without it. What I think it does is it brings another layer of I don't want to say complexity to the character. Your character's goal is like, I need to amass 10,000 gold pieces because I have a warrant, or I have a, farm that I need to save, or I have whatever it is. It's like you create that goal for yourself. It will completely shade what you bring to the table each session. And I would go so far as I think I might have done a D and Daily about this like a long, long time ago. Like one of the very early ones. I feel like I remember this is if you come to each session with a goal for the session as a player, not just for the character, but like, let's say you're at a table and it's you, the GM, and let's say 3 other players to make it simple, right? 4 players and 1 GM. Okay. And that you have not had very much interaction with one of the other players by way of their character, setting the goal that like in this session, I am going to create a scene or a moment with that player's character is such a powerful tool to put in your belt or in your, toolkit as a role player. It's like you come to the table knowing before anything happens that I'm going to find an opportunity tonight to start a conversation with this other person. Now, that other person might not reciprocate, but what I've found in my experience is that if I let that person know before we even get started, they tend to be more receptive to it. Like, hey, Jimmy, I want our characters to have a conversation tonight. Are you cool with that? And most of the time, the other players can be like, yeah, that'll be fun. And it gives an opportunity to like, number one, you get to engage with the other person. Number two, it gives you an opportunity to sort of show some like, shine a light on that player or on that character, that player. It's a good thing to keep in mind as a GM too, because a lot of times our players will like, take a back seat. It's just their personality, right? They just don't feel like they need to be the center of attention. They don't need to make the decisions. They don't feel motivated to for whatever reason. Yet and still, I think it's a good idea to like pay attention to like who's been doing the most in the last couple games and who's been not really stepping up, and just find little subtle ways to like bring them into the moment, let them shine, even if it's something that's real subtle. Like, oh, you've got a wizard in the party and you want them to shine. So it's like, have something that only the wizard is going to be able to figure out.
Yeah.
Like because of their skill set, because of the character's skill set, and that way you get them drawn into the story. So like, I love that from what Austin said. Like having a goal for your characters is powerful. And as a DM, it's sort of like we need to do the same thing for our NPCs all the time, right? What is our NPC? Like creating NPCs is very different for me than it is for creating characters. When I create an NPC, I basically only want to know 3 things. And I've done one of my videos was about this. It's a key that I use when I create an NPC. I want to know 3 things. I want to know, what do they want? What do they need? And what do they fear? If I know those 3 things, I've got everything I need to know about that personality. And then I can let it come to the surface and bubble up. Because I do voices, right? So like I can let whatever that is flavor how I voice them and how their personality is portrayed during the game. Because if I know what they're afraid of, I can find triggers that might happen in the conversation. If I know what they want, that's what's on the surface. That's what they're driving for. But usually what they want and what they need aren't the same thing. Yeah. Like they might want to become a wealthy merchant, but what they really need is a feeling of success, or they need to feel what's the word?
Validated,
like resourceful. No, they they need to feel like they're serving a purpose. They're helping.
Right.
And so if you're characters come in and they're talking to this merchant and they're like, they want to haggle. It's like, well, they need to make money. Or sorry, they want to make money, but they need to feel useful and purposeful and like they're helping out. And the players are like, oh, but we just can't afford it. Well, now that NPC is going to maybe be a little kinder and more willing to come down on their prices. And, you know, like, but if they're afraid of being ripped off or stolen from, they're probably going to be super suspicious of a character like a rogue or someone who's being shady and or a bard that's trying to like sweet talk them in the way of like it almost feels like they're kind of swindling them. You know, it's like
for
so
sure.
now you've figured out all these different flavors. So like when I create an NPC, that's how I take the approach.
Yeah.
I have also, like you said, Dan, I learned from Daniel because I got to play in a game. The first time Daniel and I actually played at a table together, he was playing Mira. And so it's like I got to be there to experience him figuring out this character so he would be able to better run it in his sessions, which I thought I'm like, wow. That's number one, that's commitment to the role of the DM.
Right.
Number two, it's such a brilliant way to figure out a character. That's awesome. Well, anyway, okay, I went on a little rant.
No, that's
I think Sandman Mike, he just commented, he said some of the most fun I've had playing recently is just a GPT build of a druid for me a couple hours before I start playing.
Nice.
And discovering it through role playing. That's kind of what I was saying. That's what I do with my NPCs when they matter. Only when they matter, because you don't have time for every single NPC. Every single shopkeep can't have their own one shot, or else, well, you're playing a lot of D&D if you do that. So maybe it's not so bad. I don't know.
Yeah. So let me throw this out to you, Daniel, because that's a great segue to what I was just thinking is, what do you do when you have an NPC that is just a throwaway NPC that it's shopkeeper, and suddenly your players fall in love with that character? So great example I have right now is in the current, I'm running the Vecna, the new Vecna game book.
Cool.
And they come across a ghost. I don't want to throw any spoilers out there, but my characters fell in love with this ghost. And in the book, the ghost doesn't really have any in-game or anything. It's just there. It's a plot device, right? Give them some information.
Sure.
And they wanted to rescue this ghost. So as a DM, I think a lot of the pieces to running an NPC is listening to your characters also, because you'll never know when your characters are going to, or your players are going to suddenly say, hey, we need to save this person. And you're thinking, okay, let's go for it. And I actually, in my game, had to adjust and say, okay, I have to make a way for them to save this character, which was fun. It was awesome. It ended up being a really cool, result to the game that the players felt fulfilled from it. So a lot of that is also listening to your characters when you might just have a throwaway NPC that you're thinking, oh, he's just a merchant, to your guys' point. But hey, your characters love this. I now need to develop a whole new story behind this character. So I understand to your point, Gregory, is, oh, now I need to do all this stuff. Let's figure out what is their motivation.
Right.
Why do they own this store? So.
Yeah, totally. That's cool. That's really cool. Go ahead, you, Daniel.
Yeah, I was just going to simply say, it's a couple things to respond to that. One is, this is why I don't like official content. I mean, I like official content for its ability to give me ideas and to help me cherry pick what I want out of different adventures that I own. But my players will throw everything off the rails almost immediately, no matter what. And I think in order to play official content, you have to be railroaded to some extent in order to stay with the official content. I mean, if your players are doing Lost Mine and decide to abandon going to Phandalin because they saw something cool about Waterdeep, well, what are you going to do? You're going to move Phandalin in between Waterdeep and Neverwinter, probably not. So you have to be willing to be railroaded. And if my players decide to love an NPC that's a throwaway like that, you try and take them off the board as quickly as you can, and then end the session as quickly as you can, so that you can figure out what the hell to do next. Or you can try and do it seat of your pants, but
right. And to your point, Gregory, I'm the same way too. And I'm by no means great at voices, but I do like to. My preference as a DM in the way I just run my games, I like to role play each NPC. Now I'm terrible. I don't remember if they come back to that NPC in 6 months, I won't remember what voice I used. But so I'm not Matt Mercer by any stretch of the imagination. But to your point, Daniel, I guess I look at it differently I try to react to it because to me, during that session is your one chance to capture your players. Because if your players are engaged at that point, I don't know if they'll be engaged next week or next 2 weeks or however long it is between sessions. I totally get what you're saying, though, Daniel, as far as giving yourself a chance to prepare for what do you want to know about it? Well, I don't know. But and again,
it's a paper shuffle.
Yeah.
Players ask you something you don't know. The important thing is make sure they think it's written somewhere.
Yeah.
So start shuffling paper and thinking.
Is that not the greatest? For me, that is the greatest feedback you can get from a player is, did you have that all prepared, or did you make that up on the fly?
Yeah.
That's nice. The greatest feedback, because I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah. Some things are just going to pivot, lucky. Right?
Sure.
Why's that?
You have to. Well, you guys are lucky. It's fun. It's been my experience as a GM. Like, I've not had my players fall in love with an NPC. Partly one is because in one game that I'm running, or I've been running, I'm running the Princes of the Apocalypse, and it's a very much dungeon crawl game. Like, there's so much that's done underground in caves and in, the long old dungeon crawl. That's what it is. And so they engage with the NPCs to some degree, but it's sort of become this running joke where it's like they've gotten to a point where they're like, they were trying to engage with NPCs that were basically not of a mindset to engage with them, and the ones that were, they would just kill outright and be gone and move on. I'm like, damn, well, there was another lost opportunity. So it's like, and I'm not skilled enough to adjust on the fly to like be like, well, I'm going to change this personality so that they can. And then the other game that I've been running, I've sort of had another end of the spectrum. It's like every NPC I present to them, they're sus of. They just completely suspect every single NPC. They don't trust any of. I put like the sweetest, most wonderful person in front of them, or fun, silly, quirky character, and they will absolutely. There's so many NPCs I've presented to them where I'm like, I'm trying to hook at least one of them. I just want to hook at least one character. I don't care if they all fall in love with them, but it just doesn't happen. It's so bizarre. And I don't know if it's me or it's the players and just their mindset is like, it just hasn't happened. And the other thing that's fascinating, again, with Prince of the Apocalypse, I sort of expect it because it kind of is a railroady thing of like, there's sort of a path that's pretty darn obvious that you kind of need to take. You have a couple of different roads you can go, but there's definitely an end game with that adventure. Whereas I'm running Waterdeep Dragon Heist, which is as close to sandbox as you can get with an adventure. That's a pre-made adventure, I think. And it's the same kind of thing of like, I have run sessions where I'm like, okay, I've got like 3 or 4 different things prepared. Let's see what they want to do. and they just don't do anything. Like I have to like push them to make decisions. I have to I have to put something in front of them or they won't move. And it's really fascinating because none of these players are like new players. These are people, some of them have been playing for almost as long as or almost as long as I have, which is again decades, right? And others are like they've at least been playing for a decade. So they're not new players. And it's just so fascinating. Like I'll give them like 3 or 4 different story hooks and they don't bite on any of it. And they won't even come up with their own stuff of like, I don't care about any of that. I want to go check out the jeweler. Or I want to go like, is there a bar I can go to? Like they don't do any, it's so bizarre. I'm like having this really weird sort of experience of like, what do I do now? And I've kind of like run out of stuff, at least for the time being, of like, okay, I'm sort of out of ideas because they're not biting on the hooks I'm presenting. How do I handle this? So besides the fact that I'm like crazy busy in my day-to-day life, so I've had to step back for that reason. But in the game, I'm like, what do I do now?
Yeah.
It's so funny.
Nothing.
So you guys are lucky.
If they're not biting on the hooks that you're handing them, then just wait, slow it down until they do bite.
Interesting.
Yeah.
If they're just waiting for the next thing, then
they're
just wasting your time,
Daniel. So here's kind of been my learning along the same lines as you've experienced, Gregory, is that, and this was more when I was running my homebrew, and this honestly is when me running my homebrew is where I learned that my players are more geared towards campaign books, and what I mean by that is my players are very much. Just lost connection to Steam, so not that matters.
Good.
What I mean by that is, and I don't know, I think some of it is driven off your GMing style, and I'm very story driven. I mentioned that way earlier in this stream, and I think I've built that into my players as well. But to almost to my detriment, in that they want to be, and again, I don't mean any of this in a derogatory or negative way, is they like to be led. And what's kind of neat is my players, and I guess I take this as a kind of respect to me as a dungeon master, is now their expectation maybe is high, but their thought process is, and they've said as much, is we want to do what you have prepared for us because we know, Dan, that you've spent time preparing. Now, this was also a point where I was building big set pieces, things like that for each adventure, and they wanted to see that, but they also didn't want to ruin that for me. So it kind of multiple ways. It goes back to being a player. They said, we want you to have fun, Dan. We know you've spent all week planning for this, so we want you to show us. But it's also the story. They want to keep seeing the story. So to your question of, what do you do when a players just won't choose? I think sometimes they're just waiting for you to tell them.
Yeah,
this is the next step.
Burn the building down.
Yeah, this is the next step.
Burn the whole place down.
Do this.
Yeah, totally. It's really interesting because I'm not like, as a player, I'm not like that at all. Like if I'm in a game where I'm happy to sit back as like a bit of a wallflower. If there's another player that wants to take the lead, have at, go have fun, do your thing. But if I recognize like the GM is expecting or hoping or wanting us to do A, B, C, or D, even if it's like off the rails, it doesn't matter. Just move. Like I'm happy to make a decision. Like I will move the story forward. Because I feel like at some tables that is a necessary role as a player. Yeah. Like especially in a one shot. Like, oh my goodness. Like if you're on a one shot and people are just like not doing anything, that game is going to be either a very long game or very boring or whatever. It's like you have to make action. So it's so weird to me to have these, they're great players. Like we always have a good time, but it sort of ties back to a little bit of what about we were talking last week too, or in our last stream, is like some people just play D&D for the combat. They really just want to get in a fight and do all the cool stuff. And like you said, Daniel, it's like they built the character to do the cool combo super move, you know? And if they don't get the opportunity to do that, they are not having fun. And others want a story, which is like, Dan, it sounds like I wish I was at your table. It sounds like, because I want the story, right? I'll chew on that and enjoy every minute of it. And I've been, unfortunately, I've had so many wonderful GMs, and they all have like different styles. So, but like, yeah, my current GM with my homies is like, it's all combat. So I just enjoy it. I just enjoy that.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. I think we've talked about it offline, but at some point, and won't even get into it, but we need to consider options for playing a game at some point.
Totally.
But yeah. So my philosophy as a DM, and I know we're getting long on the stream, and I hope you guys are all enjoying this, because I know we are. Is because I have a mix of players. I have players that love the story and love the fighting. So I know as a DM, to make everybody happy with this 3 hours that they've given me to present something to them, is I can go so far with my story, but then I better have a fight ready for. I better have them rolling initiative at some point. And Daniel, you made a point that you've gone sessions without ever having combat. So I mean, do you? What do you?
It depends on what you're trying to do. Well, if you're trying to do like a roguish break-in type scenario, obviously a fight is going to be counter to the entire point of the stealthy mission that you're trying to set up. You're trying to get them to gather intel so that they can break it to the bank. I think I had you guys do.
Yeah.
The whole point was to gather the intel and figure out how you're going to sneak in.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't know. It's going to depend on the player, but I do think mixing them can be difficult, because that attitude, that idea that you're not having fun at a table, whether you're trying to fake it or stay quiet in the corner as long as you want to because you want to combat, but it's not happening, it's going to show up. It's going to be felt by the other players. That kind of stuff can be dangerous. Like you just have to be careful how you mix your players, because you put a power gamer in with people who just want to role play and just want to like figure out puzzles. They're going to be frustrated. It's going to be difficult. That's my experience, and I've been very thankful that my family is a good group, that they kind of jive and they can work through puzzles the same amount. They seem to lean towards puzzles more in combat most of the time. But that's my family, I guess. Oh, I have to tell you, the Mira was, and I think I might have mentioned this to you, Dan, but Gregory, Mira was it's part of Keys to Golden Vault, and Mira was hiding inside of a building, and this large construct ripped the top off the building, but Mira had boots of spider climbing, so she was upside down on the roof.
Nice.
And the robot rips the roof off. So now the robot's holding the roof up, and Mira's upside down staring at him. And of course, for no reason at all, Mira just happens to have a baby strapped to her chest who also has a knife. It was a whole thing. Like, Mira has developed into a just chaotic
That's awesome.
force to be reckoned with. But she ended up crawling around him and putting an ever-smoking pot in his armor, the construct's armor, before jumping off. And all this was supposed to be the big bad evil of the cavern, of the area we were in, and it just turned into just laughably weird by the end of it. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like I said, I like having characters that you feel connected to, and I would hate to play a character that I only saw as stats and only saw as skills, because to me, it's much more interesting to see a character that I'd rather see Mira fail as Mira than succeed as, just a fully optimized rogue.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. And that, like, again, it all goes back to the basic foundation of what we wanted to discuss tonight, right? So it's like you're starting a character. Number one, how do you create the character? Number two, what do you use? Do you use the starting equipment or do you purchase equipment? Because it's like, it's especially easy to just go with the flow, but it's like making the sort of counterintuitive choice or decision can really bring a whole level of fun to each individual character. Like, I have a friend who's I'm in a game with a very good friend of mine. He has been my DM. I have DM'd for him, and we are players together in a current game. And he brings every time he brings such a unique and wonderful character to the table. And in this campaign, he is playing a paladin that uses a pole arm, which again, it's not like amazingly unique, right? It's been done, but like I wasn't expecting it, which I thought was cool. So it's like he did this really subtle little thing that made his paladin very interesting to me. It wasn't a min-max thing. It wasn't a, like trying to get the best damage, because that's not his role, and that's certainly not how he plays the character, because he's a very good role player. It was just a neat little bit of flavor for me. So like, to me, one of the things I really loved, so we have starting equipment or purchased equipment. One of the things I really loved that they added in 5th edition was the backgrounds, because each of the backgrounds has little tiny bits of equipment as well. And there's also trinkets. And not everyone uses trinkets, but I think they're fantastic. One of the fun things that I've done in some of my games, and I've had the way I found out about it is because I was in a game that used this, is you have your players, if you're going to be in a campaign, for instance, you have your players roll for a random trinket, and then you give those trinkets little subtle magic abilities, little small stuff that's not game breaking, but is fun and interesting. And it gives each of the players a little like bump to their story. Like, where did this trinket come from? Why do they use it? How do they use it? And then I've found that it can be fun to sort of level up those little trinkets, almost like it was some kind of a legendary thing or whatnot. But that's just another element of equipment that you can bring into the story. It's like, I find equipment can be a really fun hook, like a really fun bit of flavor or a really fun bit of juice to tell the story. Why is your character's armor painted hot pink? Like, just that one little thing. You could just choose that one thing and say, like, all my equipment, like, because it's obvious. Oh yeah, everything's black. My armor's black. I have a black hood. I have the black because I am secret super or whatever. Okay, cool, fine, wonderful. But why not do something that's not expected and see where it goes? Like, why would you have hot pink? And I've seen something like that underwear. Where why not? It's like, maybe that just brings out this flair for the character, this sort of like unintentional, pop that just brings a new lighthearted element to the game. Like, there's so many simple decisions that can be made. So I feel like equipment is almost its own character, or it can be rather its own character if you approach it that way.
For sure. And I think the thing I would add to that is, as a player, don't be afraid of being the only person who does that. Because you know what? You might be in that campaign or that one shot that you're running, but there might be other people who are wanting to do that, who are too reserved and don't have the confidence to do it. And if they see you doing that, that might bring them the confidence to do it. Great example is, we have a person, a lady, who joined our group about 6 months ago. And she is super outgoing, super extroverted, loves the role-playing aspect. And she has lifted everybody up in my group. And again, I've mentioned multiple times, these are people I've been playing with for 5 or 6 years. And I think them seeing her doing what she does has released to them, or given them maybe the internal permission to do it. And it's just been, for me as a DM now, I have this whole new group of players that I'm playing with that I can role play with. So yeah, to your point, Gregory, for sure. Don't if you want to do it, don't feel restricted because you might think other people might not want to do it. Just do what you have fun doing, and you might let somebody else say, "Hey, I can do it too." Okay, well, I'm going to do it too. So
totally, yeah, it gives permission to the other players.
Absolutely.
I have this weird concept. Do you guys remember that movie? It's not Glass. It's the most recent one that came out in that series. Unbreakable and Glass, and what's the current one? Like the last one. It's like
just watched it.
He's like a monster or something. Like
Split?
He's a schizo or something.
Split. I think that was it.
Split. Yes.
I think so.
Well, they have a concept in there of who has the light, and I don't know if it's because I've been a DM for so long that I'm always concerned with making sure each of my players has time in the light. That even as a player, I will, as soon as I feel like I'm monopolizing something, I will step back and then literally push somebody else out and ask them what we do next. Like I would defer to them and force them into it. But that's just me as a player. Like I just have this need of constantly trying to evolve. I don't want to see people being quiet. I don't know why you show up at the table and you're going to be quiet. So if anything, maybe they just need some nudging. And it's nice if it comes from other players and not from the DM.
Yeah,
because
for sure.
Definitely.
A little peer pressure can sometimes be a good thing.
Okay.
But it is getting late. Do you guys have anything else to close on the whole character creation? Anything other tips?
I think the only thing I would end with is just basically, look at the character you want to build, and there's no wrong way to build a character as long as you're staying within the rules. But I will just throw a shout out because Gregory mentioned it. Man, check out the backgrounds in the 2024 edition. Backgrounds are going to become way more important now for your character, so check those out. But yeah, what we just finished, I think it's a great point. Is what? As long as you're not griefing other players, don't be that person who says, this is what my character would do. That's a whole different discussion that we didn't have today. But
oh no, that needs to be a thing.
Yeah,
that's going to be a whole session.
Yeah. Don't be that person. I think all three of us would agree. Don't be that person. But don't be restrained either. Don't hold back to a reasonable extent because other players may be holding back, and you might be the one who allows them to open up and have more fun.
Call them out. Make them decide what to do next.
100%. I think my best advice in character creation would be to, if there's any question in regard to your character, just ask the GM, the DM that you're going to play with. It's like, can I do this? And most DMs are going to either say yes outright, or they're going to say, let's find out how we can do that, or let's discuss.
Let's get close.
Yeah, exactly.
For sure.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right. Well, guys, I appreciate you guys hanging out. This was a fun topic.
Totally.
And I will be uploading and providing you, Greg, of course, the actual full body, because apparently we're only live for about half of this.
We'll get it right.
Start streaming, and there's also a go live button for whatever reason. It's two different things, and my go live button was not hit like when I hit it. So
come back.
The wife
and
actually
watch
messaged
later.
like, yeah, she's like, I'm waiting for the stream to start. I was like, we've been going for like an hour. What are you talking about?
We're still learning,
Thank you guys. Yeah,
working out the bugs. That's how it goes.
Yeah. All right, guys. Have a good night. I will see you guys soon.
Thanks,
all right.
gentlemen.
See y'all on the next stream.
I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up. I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this,
I'll always show up and make a statement. I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement.
Everything I do so instinctive and so passionate. Every word I move so descriptive like an adjective. I got a vendetta against people who patented being negative when you should be getting after it. I got facts over tracks, this and that, spitting slow, spitting fast, I could roll.